I dig it. I love watching it. I love the game. But I want them to understand where they are as men and as businessmen in the business of football. So I'm thrilled that guys like Tom Brady, who have not been involved before, have come to the fold. I'm thrilled that Brian Westbrook. I'm thrilled that there's Kevin Mawais. I'm thrilled that there's Jeff Saturdays. I'm thrilled that there's Drew Breeses. But the high profile of the athlete is one thing. The dedication to their teams and their teammates is what we focus on.
Who's got the mics?
Sal Palantonio from ESPN. I wanted to ask you a question based on what Drew Brees said recently about retired players. He said that there's some guys out there that have made bad business decisions. They took their pensions early, never went out and got a job. They've had a couple of divorces. They've made some payments that they shouldn't have made, and now we're expected to pay the bill. It's not the player's fault. I want to get your reaction to that and whether or not you reached out to Drew about that and talked to him and how you can educate players about what's going on with retired players.
You know, first, that wasn't recent. Second, let me tell you about my interview to the executive committee when they were considering who to select or who to at least put into that final group of people who were going to go and be considered for this job. In that room, Mark Bruner was in that room. Kevin Mawai was in that room. Drew Brees was in that room. Brian Dawkins was in that room. Donovan Foxworth was in that room. I mean, look, when I went to that room, I told them one simple thing. The rift between current players and former players is wrong. And for any current player to believe that they don't have a responsibility to the people who made this game great is an immoral decision. So look, the reality is, if there was one thing that I wanted to say to probably ensure that I couldn't get the job, it was that. And I'm proud that guys like Kevin Mawai and Drew Brees not only elected me or suggested that I move on to the process. When we got there in March, they made the decision for the guy who said, it is your moral obligation to support the people who made this game great. Make sense? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Into what? How much validity into what I say? A lot. But oh, sorry. Well, true. Look, having men understand where they are in the business of football is incredibly important. They are given the opportunity to play on a national stage because, frankly, they can do things that ordinary humans cannot. So when we're in team meetings, are they hearing from me that you need to be responsible about the way in which you manage your life and your resources? I read the same Sports Illustrated article that you read about the number of people who, shortly after football, find themselves in financial distress. It's my job as the executive director to not only educate our players about the CBA, but I want them to be good businessmen. I want them to be good husbands, good fathers, good spouses, good members of their community. So instead of spending time trying to figure out whether there's validity in the statement, I want us to get our heads around that we need to be one team for the people who play this game. And that's taking care of the folks who broke their backs to build these stadiums. And I'm not going to forget him, and neither is Drew Brees, and neither is anybody on our team.
Hi, Jason Nflpa, NFL Network. Given the fact that we are still more than a calendar year away from March 2011, and the fact that generally these things get done at the last hour, last minute, in the past have been extended a couple of times to finally broker a deal, why do you feel so staunchly that a lockout is, I don't want to say inevitable or put words in your mouth, but some sort of eventuality?
Has any one of the prior deals included $5 billion to not play football? The answer is no. So if you are in a paradigm where someone says, we have $5 billion to not play, and during the year where we do not play, we do not have to pay 50% of our overhead that goes to stadiums, on an economic paradigm, where is that advantage? So, look, this is not, I'm not afforded the luxury of trying to guess what's happened. I don't get to sit back with Kevin and our executive committee and hope and dream. Our job is to look at the facts. And when you look at every step that has occurred since 2007, is it more of a preparation to play football or more of a preparation to not play football? So on the day where someone can sit down with us as players and as partners and say to us, our profit margin has decreased to X, well, that's how you get a deal done. And I'm still waiting for that day.
Hi, Liz Mullins, Sports Business Journal.
Speak up, Liz.
Speak up.
Yes.
That's usually not a problem, but all right. I have a question. It was recently reported that one of the NFL owners was frustrated with the lack of progress. I think it was quoted that the NFL owners had made a proposal and the PA has still not made a counter proposal. I wanted your reaction to that. And I keep reading that you have their financials. You have the NFL's financials. You know their revenues to a penny. And I want to know, what is it that you want that you don't have?
Let me take the last one first. We audit revenues. How many people here would make an investment decision by knowing how much money goes into something without knowing how much money comes out or whether it's profitable? How many people would buy a restaurant without knowing what the profit margin is? How many people would invest in a hedge fund? How much money do you have? Well, a lot. What are your rate of returns? That's none of your business. My guess is nobody in this room would make that investment. Well, you know what? Neither will I. So when we have the opportunity to look at both sides of the ledger sheet, both sides of the accounting papers, we do know revenues. But is there anybody in this room who can tell me what the average team makes over the last 5 years? What's the profit margin of an NFL team over the last 10 years? We can look at revenue, we can look at Forbes magazine, and I'm happy to rely on Forbes magazine, just as happy as I'm willing to rely on the Green Bay Packers audited financial statements. When I look at both of those things, it says that the average football team netted $31 million in profit. My simple question, does that sound like the business model where the people who play this game, who risk everything without a guaranteed contract, should give up 18%? So with respect to the comment of the owners, I assume that the reason that we are not closer together is because I haven't said yes to 18%. Well, I apologize.
There's a mic floating around somewhere.
Vito Stellino, the Florida Times Union. Steve Bisciotti said, I think, in the last few days that several teams are bleeding. You obviously disagree. Why do you think he's saying that? And is this 31% or 31 million, is that operating revenue before they pay debt service or after they pay debt service?
Let's just use their profit. I mean, you know, I can spend all time guessing about where that is. How about this? Why don't we use the metric of 2 or 3%, and then if you've got a disagreement with that, tell us what your profit margin is and we'll adjust it. With respect to the comments about we're bleeding, you know, that's fine. Why don't you show us what bleeding means? You know, I did see an article in the paper a little while ago where, and I think it was somebody from the NFL talking about the decrease in 34 million to 20 million in profit for the Green Bay Packers. Well, I have to imagine that only in the National Football League can you move from 30 million to 20 million, and it's a crisis. So I saw the comments about bleeding. I don't understand it because I don't have the financial documents. I don't have the profit margins to understand it.
DeMorris, Jarrett Bell from USA Today. Right.
Yes, sir.
Left. The 18% reduction, I'm assuming that's part of a proposal that would include a salary cap. Can you elaborate on that and whether or not your position changes if you enter an uncapped year? And as a second part to that, if you do...
a second part?
Relative to the uncapped year.
Mm-hmm.
What type of market would you expect this year in free agency if there's an uncapped year?